First off, good morning and welcome back. Hope everyone had a nice holiday break for spring break, and I hope everyone enjoyed their vacation time. It has been somewhat hectic since we've returned. It seems like the last week and a half has really been breakneck speed, even faster than normal. And we've had quite a bit going on, so I just want to kind of go over a few things that we have going on to make people aware. And to share some upcoming events so everybody's kind of on the same page. We have been sharing things pretty religiously through our Hawkeye, through our Constant Contact, and unfortunately way too many Connect Eds lately in my mind, so we're going to try to reduce the amount of those, but it seemed like we've had like 4 or 5 within a very short period of time. But we've had quite a few events and activities. One of the events we had was Math Night. I think it plays to mixed reviews. I think the timing is never good. We tried to move it up this year in regard to at 5:30 and hoping if we had food parents could pick up on the way home, it would maybe generate more of a crowd, but there's a lot of different sports activities and things going on, and it just makes it very, very difficult. So we are going to send a survey home to parents and kind of get opinions on it, and if we don't feel like it's a good model of what we want to do, then we're going to try to look in a different direction to not have that kind of event. But I had a good time with my daughter. I know that a lot of the people that did come enjoyed it, but the turnout overall, especially as you got in the 4th and 5th grade, was not as good as I would have liked it to be. So it is something we're going to continue to evolve and look at. We did it a little earlier last year, and it was still, I would say, mixed. As they got into the upper grades, it was a little less in regard to who was to attend. And the whole goal really was an opportunity for parents to just be with their child. It wasn't an educational experience in any way beyond kind of seeing how students are learning how to do math. So it was really just an opportunity to get a little quiet time for an hour with your child and just have fun, which is what I did. So I hope if you did come, you enjoyed it. In regard to some other things going on right now, we have our Davidson JV Washam faculty basketball game coming up next Tuesday. If you're new to the school, that's an event we've been doing for the last, this will be the 5th year that we've done it. Prior to that, when I was at Cornelius, we did it with Davidson as well. It originally started at Hopo High School, and we ended up filling the place up, and the fire marshals came and shut us down. So we ended up doing it at Davidson College for the last, I guess, 6 or 7 years in reality. 5 years since I've been here. It's a fun experience. It's a good time. The doors will open at 6. It's at Davidson College. All the donations and proceeds go to the Ada Jenkins Center, which supports the Davidson Cornelius community in regard to tutoring. They have a food pantry and other things. Georgia Kruger, who works for Ada Jenkins, was actually on our news yesterday and talked to the kids a little bit about what things that Ada Jenkins does for the school. But the event is a fun teacher versus teacher basketball game. They were talking about mixing some things up at the later part of the game this year, so it may be a little different where it's more of competitions in regard to shooting competitions and skills competitions that the teachers are involved in. But it's fun for the kids. Our jump rope clubs perform, choruses perform, and things like that. Mr. Wood.
Did you bring in any ringers this year?
No. Now we have I have a good soccer player playing, but I'm not sure that's going to do me any good in a basketball court. But that's a good question though. You know, it's a fun event, but this may be honestly the very last one that we have. It's becoming more and more complicated for Davidson to be able to afford us the opportunity at their school. If we do continue it, which I think that the schools want to continue, it'll probably end up happening at one of our CMS high schools again, because Davidson College, it becomes more and more difficult, and as it gets out that they are offering us the gym and the facilities, it becomes more of an issue with other community groups in regard to wanting access to the same thing, and I think that puts them in a very complicated position in regard to allowing us in, but not other community organizations. So that tied in with NCAA basketball, which that pushed us back this year. They made the tournament, so there was practicing and different things that were involved in that as well. So it will be next Tuesday. The doors open at 6. Game will start at 6:30. It's a fun time. It doesn't work out as well for us as it does for Davidson Elementary because they are a late starting school. We're an early starting school. But you know, even to come out for a half, I think it's a good time if you're able to make it out to that. Other things going on, we also have on Wednesday morning, if I'm not in an emergency room, we'll have Beginner's Day. So Beginner's Day is for all our if I don't get hurt Tuesday night in the emergency room. subtle humor. It was very subtle, obviously. Wednesday, we have Beginner's Day. That is an event for all of our brand new rising kindergartners that come in. Basically, we've done it the same each and every year, and just to kind of give you some background, most schools will do it in the evenings. I don't like to do it in the evenings because there's no one in the school, and a school is a very empty place when there's not children in it. So I like to get parents to come into the building and be a part of the school while school is actually going on, so they can see children and where there's energy going on. A school is a hollow building when there's not children involved in it. So we do it in the morning. It'll be at 8:15. It'll probably go for approximately an hour and 15 minutes. The children get the opportunity to visit classrooms with kindergarten teachers for periods of time. I do a presentation with our parents in the gym area, and then the children get picked up and they head home. So it's just an opportunity to give parents a little exposure in regard to what kindergarten will be like, expectations, procedures, where they can get access to information, begin to get people engaged in the PTO and things of that nature. This year we're supposed to, and again, when I talk about numbers with parents, they're very soft, meaning that they're all projections. So they're guesstimates based on statistics that our planning department has. We're expecting to have around 200 kindergartners this year. So right now we have 9 teachers in kindergarten. Based on those numbers, we could go to 10. Now, as of right now, based on who's registered, we may not get to 200, but you don't really know. So right now we only have probably around 90 students registered for kindergarten, which is a little bit low compared to where I think we were at last year at this time. But the projection is we'll be up around 200 students in kindergarten. So we may be adding a K class next year, and which will make kindergarten our largest grade level for next year. 3rd grade was this year, but kindergarten on paper right now will be next year. Just to kind of give you an eye on that. I think I've mentioned this already, but while I'm talking about numbers, just to kind of give an idea of where we're going to be next year, with the numbers that they've given us, and again, they give us numbers at the end of February based on statistics of where they think we're going to be, we are not going to get up to 1,100. We should be about 1083 to 1085, which means we're only going to gain about 30 to 35 students. So in regard to our teaching population, we won't be adding teaching staff in regard to numbers. There will be changes based on retirements and people moving and things of that nature, but in regard to our total number of teachers, we will stay at 50. We won't be adding a mobile based on that. We'll keep the same amount of mobiles we have. There will be some shifting in the building based on what grade levels people will be at, but overall we'll keep the same number of teachers. And some people may, well, how's that possible when you're adding 30-some kids? What ended up happening last year, and I may have talked about this way early in the year, is that our 1st grade population was supposed to be much larger than it was this year. And when we talk about projections, 1st grade didn't make their projections. And we actually came in way low. Oh, it's in there. I'm sorry. They could have easily taken a teacher away from us. And usually how Charlotte does that is the last person that was hired is the first one that has to go in those kind of situations. And it doesn't necessarily mean that person would have been a 1st grade teacher, so I would have had to shuffle everything. So just to give you an example, if the last person hired on my staff was Miss Saraki in 5th grade, she would have been the one that would have had to leave, and then I would have had to shuffle somebody from 1st grade or somewhere else up into 5th grade and move that all around, and it would have caused a tremendous domino effect throughout the building. So the positive was they allowed us to stay, they held us harmless. We were able to keep our teacher. Our numbers in 1st grade were very low this year compared to what they normally are. Due to that, we're not going to add a teacher next year because I already have one on my staff. So so it's not just they're adding 30 kids and our class sizes are going to be larger. They're not. Yes.
Who is retiring?
It's on my list of things to talk about. Actually, our retirees this year, we have 4. Our cafeteria manager, Mindy Gleaton, is retiring this year. And we have 3 classroom teachers. Debbie Brown in 2nd grade is retiring. Fran Nichols in 1st grade is retiring. And Kathy Smith, one of our exceptional children's teachers, are retiring this year. So we have 4 teachers retiring, which is our largest group to date. Last year we had 2, so this will be our largest group of retirees. And they're going to be huge losses for our school when you look down at the people that are going to go. They're anchors for this building, and in all their cases, they've been here since this building opened. So they've been here for 6 years of helping create the program that exists at this school, so they'll be missed for sure. So that kind of gives you a little bit of an idea about our numbers. You're not going to see a huge difference in regard to, you know, they're going to pull in 3 more mobiles like they did this year. They're going to be about, you know, they're not going to be doing any of that based on what we have. The biggest thing that a parent may see is a shift of where people are at. For instance, this year we have 10 third grade classes. Next year we'll probably drop back down to 8 and things like that. So you'll see people internally moving grades a little bit based on where we have our needs. So classes may not look exactly the same in regard to, well, I was in this room last year and this was a third grade room. It may be a second grade room next year. It just depends. We don't have any plans of changing who's outside. Right now, 4th and 5th grade will stay the majority outside. There's no reason to move anybody in that type of situation, but there may be some movement in the building from grade levels and different things. Other things just to kind of tell you about, if you get the opportunity today, when this is over, stop down in the gym. We do have a mini health fair going on for our students in the gym today. It's kind of a joint effort between Nurse Nancy Mullins, who is our school nurse, and Queens College students that are in their nursing program. And they have 10 different tables set up down in our gym area that students are going to funnel through as classes and learn different things about a variety of things. And I just wrote down some of them. Sun protection and making sure they protect themselves properly when they're outside. Cold and flu, how to handle those situations and make sure that they're making good choices in regard to washing their hands and you know, just basic skills that we want our students to know not to spread germs. Fire safety, child nutrition and exercise, bike safety, and bullying will all be covered as some of the concepts. And basically they're going to spend about 5 to 7 minutes and they'll have a mini lesson where small groups will go from table to table of Queens College students, and they'll learn a little bit about that. So every grade level will go down, but that will be going on in our gym today. And it's the first time we've tried that, so that will kind of evolve over time in regard to how that works. Questions about any of those kinds of things? Okay. Other things coming up, we have our kindergarten choral performance on May 3rd. That's our PTO meeting. That'll be at 6:30. The PTO meeting will start. The performance will start right after that. We did not have a early spring choral performance. I put it in the Hawkeye multiple times so people be aware. But our lead choral teacher has been out on medical leave since before Christmas, and we've had a interim in there, Miss Galoni, who's actually one of our parents, has taken that job on. She is a teacher, and she's been working with our students, and she and Miss Chapman had started working on kindergarten. I decided it was too late to try to get that spring one in. We did the math night instead for that one. So our May event will be our kindergartners, and that's how we're going to attack it. We had already planned on this year not doing our upper grade students at all because it was just getting too large. We originally had done 2 grade levels at a time, but we are doing just kindergarten first and second now just due to the massive size that we were dealing with in regard to that. So we will have a choral contest for kindergarten in May. Other things coming up, EOGs, the end of grade test if you have a 3rd, 4th, or 5th grader, that starts May 14th. It is 4 days of testing. It is state testing. It is done with every student in the state of North Carolina. If you're from another state, it's very similar to the California Achievement Test or all these other norm-based tests. This is the state of North Carolina's version of that. They will take a test in reading, math, science in 5th grade. Yeah, there's 2 parts of math. So, you know, it will go over 4 days total for 5th graders. And then there's makeups following that. Please, if you have a 3rd, 4th, or 5th grader, make sure that they are here on those days. If they are absent at that time, they really put themselves behind the 8 ball in regard to having to take multiple tests very, very quickly because of the time constraints that the state gives us. So those are set basically a year in advance. So try to work your schedule around getting them here. Now, obviously, if they are deathly ill, you know, don't force your child to come to school. We want them to, you know, do their very, very best. But if they can be here, you know, don't schedule a vacation, is basically what I'm trying to say. Other things going on with that is we do not talk about the end of grade tests in regard to having assemblies and pep rallies and things of that nature. My whole philosophy on that is I don't want to add additional stress to what the children and the teachers and the parents already feel about these things. So I look at it as if we're teaching the right things and we're teaching the curriculum properly, performance is going to come out in the wash properly. That's the way I've always done it, and that's the way I believe it should be done. Not everyone agrees with that, but we will not be having assemblies and different things to go over that. That doesn't mean teachers aren't going to be talking to children about preparation and things like that, but we very much do not want drill and kill kind of activities, which are basically test prep. That stuff parents can do at home with their children if they want to, but I try to get teachers not to do that at school because I just don't think it's the right way to teach kids how to do that. Questions about the end of grades? Yes?
Do we do anything after testing is over to praise them regarding that whole aspect?
I think teachers do some things in regard to having like classroom incentives and different things that they do. Sometimes they bring in Smarties for their kids the morning of because they're smart and things like that, just to kind of put them at ease. We do give some additional physical activity times and things like that, but we don't have an event just for the end of grade celebration. Now we do have field day shortly thereafter, which is kind of a culminating activity that we use for that, but we don't have anything specifically for end of grades are over, celebration. But it's not necessarily a bad idea, but we don't as of right now. The way the time crunch is, you get done with testing the week of May 14th, you basically have 1 week, and then field day is, I think, the last day of May or the first day of June. It's a Friday,
June 1st.
And then you have like another week, and then school's gone. We do end of year parties mixed in there too, so it becomes a very tight time crunch in regard to how it works, but that's really not a bad idea. Any other EOG questions, people that are new that may have questions? Another thing that people usually worry about is, oh my gosh, is my child going to have enough time? They allot over right around 4 hours to complete a test. Plus, if your child has special needs, they do additional modifications where you actually get more time. It is a rarity that a child will actually take all the time that it's afforded them to take the test. So most children will have more than enough time to complete their materials. And if there was a problem in regard to that kind of thing between the teacher and the parent, those are typically caught far before end of grades ever happen, and we're able to put some things in place to try to help them. So kids usually have more than enough time. They just need to take their time, read the questions. The big thing I talk to people about is going back and referencing the text. Our kids have a tendency to read, try to remember everything, and answer the questions, versus reading the question and going back into the text, finding the answer. Because what they do to us is they will put several questions that are very, very similar. And they ask for the best answer. And a child is going to have to delineate between the two. And it is not an easy task sometimes. In fact, I've given tests to teachers before, and we've had arguments over the correct answer. So it is something they need to really go back into the story and try to find evidence of the best answer for a lot of these questions. Yes?
Yesterday, Africanus had a homework, and he was to read and answer the questions. But what he was doing was reading, going and answering the questions, not answering the questions, but actually reading the questions at the back and then going back in there. I said, no, you're supposed to read first and answer. He said, no, my teacher said.
Some teachers have you read the questions first. Then you go back into the story. So as you read, you're starting to pick out things, and that's actually not a bad strategy. It just really depends on the child. I never did it that way, but there's some strategies out there where they say read the questions first, and then you read your story, because then as you do that, you're creating connections between the two, and it's like, aha, well, I know this, this one, and then you can highlight it or underline that I know this is in there. That's one of my questions, because each story typically only has 3 or 4 questions that go along with it, so it's not like this extensive 20-question thing that you have to remember all these questions. Usually 3 or 4 key questions. One's usually tied into a vocabulary word. So being able to infer what a vocabulary word means is very, very important. So you have to be able to look at a word in context and look at the words around it and decide what that word means. And kids need to be able to do that. So those are the skills that they need to practice. But it is a strategy the teachers teach.
He won that.
Yes.
How are we doing on proctor numbers? Are we getting enough proctors?
Mr. O wanted me to mention that. Right now, we are good. He has 2 people extra right now. If you're interested in being like a sub and you haven't told him yet, email him. He'll put you on the list. It is inevitable. We have somebody call us at the 11th hour and say, I have childcare issues, or I'm not feeling well, or whatever the case may be, and we have to rotate people and deal with that. So if it is something that you're interested in doing, he'll put you on a list. But as of right now, and that was as of yesterday afternoon when we talked, we have enough, which in and of itself is a massive task. What Mr. Hotalski has to deal with in regard to preparing for that, every single classroom in 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade has to have 2 adults in it. It has to have the administrator of the test, which has to be a teacher, and it has to have a proctor, who has to be trained. And the proctor is usually a parent volunteer, and every single room has one of those. Then on top of that, any child that gets additional modifications or accommodations. So for instance, we have children that go to a separate setting. We have children that have read aloud. We have children that get extra time. And you can't lump all those kids together. They have to be in small groups. And for every one of those situations at our school, we have to have 2 adults. You have to have a test administrator and a proctor. And we literally take every room in our building up during those days to test. So what we'll ask parents before EOGs, I send out usually a message to parents and say, please, on those days, once you drop your children off, don't plan on coming to lunch on those days. Don't plan on coming in to volunteer. We try to keep the building as quiet as we possibly can, because literally every nook, cranny, office space, flex room, everything around my office, every conference room is being used for some sort of pull-out category. And some of those extend for longer periods of time, because if you have additional time on your testing, you may test into the afternoon, so you go and eat your lunch and then you come back and continue. So it does become very, very complicated, but as of right now, we're okay. If you have middle schoolers, they tend to have more of an issue finding people, but middle and high school have to go through the exact same thing. So that is a challenge. But right now we're good, but if there's other people that are interested, Mr. I know would love to just put you on the side list. In regard to, let's see, the only other thing or 2 more things that I have, I kind of wanted to get, do we have any 2nd grade parents in the room? 2, okay. I'm going to ask you guys a question, and then everybody else can kind of chime in, because Mr. McClure has a 3rd grader this year. How many people have 3rd graders this year? All right, so then really kind of everybody can. First off, I want to let you know that we talked a little bit about bring your own technology to school next year, I think 2 sessions ago, and I kind of showed you a little bit about how iPads can be used in different things. Shortly thereafter, or right around the same time, CMS came out and they publicized this, and it made the papers, and then some people were questioning, why are we using this money for that, and there was, a little rigmarole about that. But in addition to that, they offered up to our school staff the opportunity to apply for grants to get iPads in our classrooms. And what the grants would allow us to do is PLCs, which is like a professional learning community, which could be everybody in this room. They had to create an application of how they would use iPads in their classroom. If they were to win the grant, every teacher would get an iPad, and then every class next year that they teach would get an iPad for our school. We are pleased to say that we had 7 different PLCs, which means every single grade level in our school, special areas, kindergarten, all the way up through 5th grade, applied for one of these grants. So we have 7 in our building that have applied. We are waiting to hear from that as another way to get the technology in our school. So that is something we hopefully be hearing about pretty soon. In regard to our Jimmy Johnson grant, we are moving very, very quickly toward our goal. We were able to get an additional $10,000 from our booster-thon that has really helped us go up, and I have a couple other things in the work that could put us over the top probably in the next few weeks if I get some good news. So the hopes are that we may be to our goal before this school year ends, which would be a massive bonus for us, that we can actually get some of these things done this summer and they could be ready to roll for the next school year, which is far above and beyond what I would have ever imagined us to be able to do. We started really fundraising in January, and to say that in April we're almost at the $45,000 mark says a lot for the community that we're in and the parents in our community, without really having to do a specific fundraiser that went along with it. So we're very proud of that, and Ms. Chuka, Ms. Bossy, and the whole group of the PTO has done a great job of trying to get people. And you know, it started off slow and we were getting a little bit here, a little bit there, but we have a few grant opportunities and things that are pending out there that if we hit on one of those, we'll be at our goal, you know, very, very soon. So we're very excited about that. And we may be to the point where we're able to buy more technology than we actually were originally. So that's exciting.